Hey, it's Paul. Welcome back to YNR Update. I'm going to cover the week of June the 1st to the 5th. And I've got news for you. One, I need you to subscribe to this channel. And secondly, I want to let you know that you can now find this, that's right, in a blog. And it's on Let's Talk About Soaps. Just visit Let's Talk About Soaps and you can check out my YNR Friday cliffhanger. I'm going to jump right into what happened this week. The first thing we see Avery. And obviously, she's got a strong objection to Nick wanting to give Sharon 1 day's custody of Faith. And it gets really heated at one point. She tries to deter Nick from doing this, and she also gets into it with Dylan when she sees how cozy Dylan is and the fact that he's actually, speaking and vouching for Sharon. Now, oddly, Nick seems to have no trouble with this. Now, when the meeting goes down with the mediator, everything goes as promised, and Sharon is victorious and Dylan's right by her side. In fact, Dylan says that he is going to be around on those days that Faith is there. And once again, Nick has no problem with. We also see Chelsea and Gabe, and they're going through some strife. She really wants this guy to be himself and stop bringing up Adam and almost trying to be like Adam. And Gabe lets her know that, that he wants nothing more to do this, but you and I know that he can't be anyone other than Adam. We also see Marco, and he tells Victor the big secret that Victor wants to know. He wants to know who Gabe's real father is, but Marco, aka Jack, pulls a switcheroo and tells him that he found out that Gabe is actually Jack's son. Now, this kind of puzzles me because Victor usually does his homework and he takes it as face value. Victor always has a team of detectives on board, so he doesn't check into this. In fact, he goes digging around and he goes to Sage, doing a little snooping around to try to confirm this, but he doesn't get very far because, Gabe is always there, and Gabe shows up, and but it doesn't go the way Gabe wants to, because Victor turns the tables on him and says, I know you're not a Bingham, and I know who your father is. So Gabe's rattled. What does he do? He runs back to Jack, or who he thinks is Jack, and asks him why he blew his cover. Now, Jack's excuse isn't too good. He said Victor was asking a lot of questions, poking around. He had to give him something, so he told him that he was Jack's son. And what Gabe says is, you just put a target on my back. This isn't going to help me. And in fact, when Victor comes gunning, he's going to come gunning for you, and he's going to come gunning for me. So that's kind of where we leave them here. We also get to see Jack, and he's on this ship, and he meets Marco's ex-girlfriend. Now, this woman is named Marissa, and she's somehow stuck on this ship full of smugglers and thieves, and she's doing a good job of running sort of interference. She ends up getting a key to help who she thinks is Marco and is really Jack, but in exchange for letting him go, she wants to know, what happened, why he left her. Now, when we do see Marco, we get to see a flashback of him and this Marissa and how he left her basically because he needed to keep her safe because people were after him. So this woman's got a lot of questions, but Jack can't really answer them. And what he does is he promises that in order to play along, because he gets kind of a beat down and a pistol whipping from the drug smuggler, so he tells Marissa that he can get the money, and he tells her that the money is in this place called Genoa City. And he paints such a great picture of Genoa City. Now Marissa wants to come to Genoa City and get away from it all, and she wants to come with her Marco. She doesn't know it's Jack. So we can look forward to her coming to town, and things go really cartel style on this one. We also see Kevin. Now Kevin, in order to get Paul to go along with his plan that the killer has not been caught, what he does is he leaks something into GC Buzz saying that the police are still looking into witnesses, but it backfires on him because he ends up getting arrested, and his old friend Detective Harding is now in the case. So Kevin calls his brother Michael to bail him out, and we also find out after Michael talks to Paul, we see that what's gone down here is Paul actually really thinks Kevin's onto something, and he knows that he's getting stonewalled from the FBI. So him and Harding are working behind the scenes, but the reason they want Kevin neutralized is because he keeps tipping off the killer as to what they're really doing. So they actually go as far as to arrest him, and that's why Michael gets called in. And Mariah unwittingly tries to help him out, so she puts a response in GC Buzz, supposedly from the killer, saying catch me if you can. So now everybody's after this killer, and it's a countdown to see what'll happen. We also see Hilary, and she finally gets her divorce papers. Now, she's not going to go away quietly. Not only is she not going to go away quietly, but she wants to confront Neil and apologize to him. And obviously Devon tells her that this is a really bad idea, but she's intent on doing it. And what happens, I mean, she ends up running into Lily, and that doesn't go well. When she sits down with Neil, that doesn't go well either. I mean, this guy does not wish anything good for them, and it becomes really, really obvious. But you know, the two of them still want to be together, so much so that towards the end of the week we see Devon pull out that promise ring, or that commitment ring that he had, and he asks her to marry him. Lily sees the ring, and she knows the two of them are getting married, and just at that point Neil walks in, and things get ugly. And when asked what he thinks about it, you know, Neil says basically he's divorced from her and she can go ahead and do whatever she wants, but we know that Neil has nothing but revenge on his mind and will be hatching a plan really soon. Things get so bad in this situation that Neil actually confesses to Nikki that his hope is to leave Devon penniless, and leave them both penniless, and leave them both blind. So you can tell he's got nothing but revenge on his mind, and he's going to play this out. Then we switch over to Faith and Dylan and Sharon, and they're having a bit of a moment. Now things get weird because after Sharon leaked out that Nick was having a baby with Sage, it gives Faith an idea, and she actually asks her mother if Dylan and Sharon could give her a baby brother. Now it's very awkward, and they're able to sidestep the question, but you know that things are happening in Faith's head, and she's really confused, and throwing Dylan into the mix is even more confusing, which leads to my other point. I don't understand how they can do this. She has now been with 3 guys that are brothers. It's really confusing. It makes it look like there's no other cast around, and it makes it awkward, but Nick seems to be the only one that doesn't find this awkward. Does anybody see this? We also see Nikki with her counselor, and she's making a lot of excuses. It's really, you know, you can really tell that there's a lot going on in her mind, and at one point Victor shows up to see her, and I think with her counselor's urging, she decides not to let Victor see her. So Victor's thrown by this so much that he's really concerned. He's actually concerned that Neil is able to get close to her, and he doesn't understand that they're both going through the same thing. And we do see Neil and Nikki, and Neil does urge her to, you know, reach out to her family, but Nikki wants to do the opposite. She actually wants to cut Victor off. Eventually she lets Victor come to see him, and he comes with flowers. He's happy to see her, but she tells him that she thinks that they should go their separate ways, and that he is bad for her. She thinks that Victor has a lot to do with what is wrong with her because of his expectations and her ability not to live up to those expectations. So Victor's crushed. You actually see tears as he is told that she can't be with him. So we know a lot's going to happen down the road, and I don't think it's good for Victor. I think it might be a bit of karma coming back on him. Now, flipping back to Jack and the smugglers, we see that they've come up with an idea to get back their money. What they do is they take a picture of Jack, who they think is Marco, and they spread it around to the smugglers for the highest bidder, hopefully so they can get their money back and find out where he's put the money. So this puts a target on the real Jack, so much so that near the end of the week we see Marco, and he's actually requested this photo as proof of life because he was told by Victor that Jack's escaped and he's on this ship. So he's gone through his channels to find this guy. So we know that Jack has more than just the smugglers to worry about. He has Marco to deal with and what he wants to do with him, because he really needs to serve him up as bait so that his enemies will stay away from him. We also see Sage, and she's having cramps, and they get worse after her visit from Victor. Go figure. So by the time Nick gets back, it's so bad that he has to take her to the hospital. And when he takes her to the hospital, they tell him that she's got appendicitis, and the only thing that they can do is go in, and so she does have surgery. Now, it's tricky at first because going in might hurt the baby because of the age of the baby, and that reminds me of another thing. Sage was actually with Gabe on the 30th of April. 2 weeks later, little over 2 weeks later, she announces she's pregnant, and Gabe thinks that he's the father. Now, I understand things happen fast in soaps, but this is a bit much. But what happens when she does go to the hospital is eventually Gabe finds out, and he tears off. In fact, she leaves Chelsea, which leaves her and Billy scratching their heads why he would tear off to see about her baby. And he gets there, and he sort of gets into it with Nick, and Nick says, "This isn't your baby. I don't know what you're doing here." No one can understand what he's doing here, but Chelsea, after hearing from Billy that something's not right with this guy, she point blank asks him if this is his baby. Now, he gets very defensive and denies it, but eventually he tells her that he's going to tell her the truth, and you think he's going to tell her. And all of a sudden, she cuts him off, and she says, you know, I lived this life as a con artist, I went through all this stuff, I'm not going to treat you the same way, so he gets off the hook. But we know eventually that the truth is going to come out. Now, the other thing we see that's really interesting is Lauren and Kane, and this is going really, really too far, because Lauren is in a situation where she's always crying. In fact, she tells Kane that Michael wants to serve her with divorce papers, and she's very upset. And of course, Kane starts comforting her. Not in the talky way, but in the let me put my arms around you or hold your hand. And of course, Lily sees this, and Lily, I mean, she is like a chihuahua. She goes off on everyone. And she goes off on Lauren and tells Lauren to find her own man. In fact, she throws Carmine into her face. Now, Kane's had enough of this, and he walks away. You know, and he's already told her he's not going to do anything. He hasn't got feelings for Lauren, but him and Lauren find each other in the park. And the guy who said he has no feelings for Lauren, and Lauren says she's not going to steal anyone's man, they end up in a deep kiss. Now, this is where it gets really weird, because we've already seen this. Lauren's gone down this road with Carmine, but yet again, the writers want to make her go down this road again. So there's nothing but misery ahead for these guys. And that's about it for this week. I think I've covered the major topics, but I want to get your feedback on what's gone on. Please go on Let's Talk About Soaps. I'd love to hear back from you, or you can post to this channel. But thanks for checking out this week's update. I hope you have a great weekend. It's Paul, it's Y&R Update. Take care.